Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're going to be looking at some cards that I think you guys should be looking to offload within the next week or so. Now, we do have Nationals next week, which is widely regarded as the biggest tournament of the year, but we have to keep in mind what is going to happen with the market shortly after. In August, we have Worlds, and there's not going to be too many big events over the rest of the summer, and then we have the Megatins coming out at the beginning of September, which is going to bring about a ton of important reprints. Those reprints often cause a lot of key cards that came out within the previous 12 to 18 months to tank in price because they are the first time that those cards are going to be reprinted. That being said, prices will usually stay high up until Nationals because players need to use the cards, but then fall quickly after that as a lot of players don't plan on playing in many big events until the following season. So today we're going to review some of the key cards that I believe you guys should be offloading as soon as possible to capture maximum value for them while you still can. Let's get started. So kicking things off, we have Runic Tip. Now, if I were you guys, Runic cards would be among the first things that I would be looking to offload over the next couple of weeks. The Runic engine has proven to be strong over the last couple formats. Obviously, there is Runic Sprite that is still running around, and we had Naturia Runic before Sacred Tree was limited, but we started to see it get mixed into other things, with decks like Kashtira Runic seeing competitive success as well. And it's pretty easy to see why. You can search for an Effect Veiler, Raigeki Break, or MST that you can activate from hand on your opponent's turn, and then the engine even allows you to draw into more disruptions, which could be runic spells or even hand traps. It's pretty easy to see why the runic cards are so strong, and they function as either an engine or a standalone deck. However, we should definitely be looking to offload these cards. Now, over in the OCG, Runic Fountain was limited, and while it's just semi-limited here in the TCG, I do think that it could follow suit eventually. Alternatively, I could also see Runic Tip getting limited itself, it being a searcher for any disruption that you want, which is really strong. At the same time, the Runic cards should be reprinted in the 2023 Megatins, as Konami has confirmed that cards from Tactical Masters will be included for reprints, so we should expect these cards to be included. That being said, Runic Tip is still around $25 per copy, which isn't an insignificant amount. All things considered, I think that the engine won't be around in the game in another 6 months or so, but even if it is, the whole engine should be made much more accessible with these upcoming reprints. If you don't plan on using the cards at all over the next couple of months, you're probably better off offloading these copies for now. Up next, let's look at Ariana the Labyrinth Servant. So after the last TCG ban list, a lot of people thought that Labyrinth were going to be the best deck of this format. They were basically untouched while everything else was, so it kind of made sense. And while they've probably underperformed over the last little while, the deck is still really strong, and if it happened to win Nationals, I honestly wouldn't be that surprised. Now, with the release of Monstrous Revenge, I think a few more people did jump onto Labyrinth. Welcome Labyrinth was an expensive piece of the deck that got a reprint, making it fairly cheap, right? So the deck was just that little bit more affordable to build overall. In fact, I think that right now, it's just Ariana, Lady Labyrinth, and Big Welcome that are the bigger pieces needed to play the deck right now, and Big Welcome isn't even that expensive. However, after Monstrous Revenge came out, we did see Ariana jump up in price from being around $14 or $15 to now being an $18 to $20 card, as players are jumping over to that deck. However, as we just discussed, Tactical Masters should be included in the Megatins, so that actually means we should see a reprint of Ariana. Actually, Darkwing Blast being in there means that we should also expect to see Lady Labyrinth in there as well. So unless you're really big on Labyrinth right now, it actually might be worth moving the entire core. It does look like for right now that the only piece not being reprinted is Big Welcome Labyrinth, which we did talk about in a previous video, but if you guys own lower rarity Labyrinth pieces and you don't plan on using the deck all that much, it's a core that you might be better off trying to offload fairly soon. The next card is Bastille Magnemite, a card that has played a pretty significant role in the game ever since its release in Darkwing Blast. The Bastille monsters are pretty awesome overall. Not only are they hand trap disruptions, but each of them serves another function, and each of them provides a lot of utility. Back in tier format, the Bastilles were game-changing by being able to banish tier limits from your opponent's graveyard and preventing your opponent from conducting a fusion summon, and even right now, they can be useful against specific decks like Labyrinth and Magnemite. However, they're also key cards that have almost single-handedly put Dragon Link back on the map. Magnemite is able to search for basically any card in the deck, and it's summonable on your opponent's turn with Erratic Spheres as well. Now obviously we're not seeing Magnemites at like $20 to $25 each anymore. However, though the price had fallen after tier limit format, the cards have rebounded back up in price with the rise of Dragon Link and the fall of Kashtira, and the card is currently sitting around $15 per copy. However, my reasoning for wanting to sell off the Bastilles, specifically Magnemite, is very similar to why I think we should be selling off Runic Tip. For one, Magnemite is currently limited in the OCG, and if dragons continue to perform well here in the TCG, I could definitely see Magnemite getting hit here as well. And secondly, I'm certainly expecting Magnemite to be reprinted in the 2023 Megatins. Specifically, I think that all the Bastille cards could get secret rare upgrades, as they're some of the more popular cards in the game today, and I think a lot of people would like to see them have that rarity bump. That would make the current printing super rares the lowest rarity version of the card, so they're not likely to retain as much of their value after their tin reprints. While they are good cards that you'll probably still want to have in your sideboard if you're planning on playing this format, I would definitely recommend offloading the Bastilles that you are not using in anticipation of that Megatin reprint. Next up, Psychic and Punisher is a generic level 11 synchro monster that should be on most people's reprint radar. We've had a couple of times in the past where Psychic and Punisher was a situationally good card. In the Rose Dragon Tenyi Adventurer deck, they were able to make this card and swing for game with it, and more recently the card is really strong in Gold Pride Punk as a really difficult to out wall that takes advantage of the fact that you have to pay life points to use the Punk engine. Aside from those couple of things, the card hasn't been all that meta impactful anywhere else, but those uses have been enough to make Psychic and Punisher now a sought after card. The card was a usual $20 to $25 early on. It tanked down to around like $5 to $10. Despite peaks of $30, the card is currently sitting at around $20 to $25. Now right now, I don't really see this card as being meta relevant. Gold Pride Punk is really struggling to perform right now, and while they might be good down the road, they're just not the play in the current format. That being said, Psychic and Punisher doesn't really have a place in the format right now, so I find it somewhat difficult to justify its current price point when we have its tin reprint coming up. I think of Psychic and Punisher as being like a Ruddy Rose Dragon, a high-level, generic, situationally useful synchro monster that only really sees play in a narrow range of decks. And of course, last year, Ruddy Rose was a solidly sought-after card that was worth like $10 to $15 because of Sword Soul, but became like a $1 card after the Megatins dropped. I mean, technically there is a chance that Punisher won't get reprinted in the tins, but that's not really a thing that you ever want to gamble on. Instead, I would take the $15 to $20 that you can get by offloading your Punisher right now and just pick up a set for probably like $5 in a couple of months. Moving along, we have Illusion of Chaos. So this is one of the older cards from the set, I think, coming out back in Battle of Chaos, and it has been a little bit, but if you guys remember, this card was actually meta relevant. Aside from just being a Dark Magician card, this card actually lets you search for Magician Souls and then puts itself back into the deck, meaning that it could be dumped by Magician Souls as the spellcaster that you dump to summon the souls out, so pretty useful. Now at one point this card reached a peak of $50, which was honestly pretty insane, but to be fair, it was back when everyone was trying to use souls to send Fateful Adventure and Draco back to the graveyard to draw 2 cards basically for free. Anyways, the Illusion of Chaos is currently a $30 card, which honestly isn't that bad all things considered. However, I would definitely expect this card to be reprinted in the Megatins, as we've been waiting for it to be reprinted for quite a while. On top of that, I don't really know when the last time I've actually seen someone wanting to use Magician Souls and Illusion of Chaos in anything. I think, like, honestly, aside from rogue decks, I can't really think of anything that's wanting to use it at the moment. There's honestly not much more to say about this card, other than that you guys should probably look to offload it as soon as you can. It will probably rebound in price eventually down the road, right? Since it's an original print Dark Magician support card, and those are always highly sought after. But if I were you guys, I would sell it now while it's high, wait for the price to tank after the reprint comes out, and then look to grab them again after that. The next one is Therion King Regulus, a card that saw a ton of hype before coming out here in the TCG, but never really worked out. I remember at first everyone thought that Punk Therion was going to be insane based on its performance over in the OCG, but it never really took off here. After that, the card wasn't really that great. The card has been used situationally, but I don't think it's really been a part of any top tier strategies. I think ABC is able to abuse this card as a free negate, and also being able to trigger the effect of a piece again is really good, but ABC hasn't been relevant to anyone other than Tombox for quite a while. And then more recently, people thought that this card was going to be crazy in Super Heavy Samurais, and if the ban list happened the way people thought it would, it probably would be, but this was definitely cut short with the banning of Scarecrow. In fact, just a month or two ago, Regulus was a $60 to $65 card. I had some people telling me that I should invest in them when they were around $50, but I told them I wanted to wait until after the ban list dropped, and honestly I'm pretty glad that I did. For right now, Regulus is $30, and honestly, even there, I think it's still overpriced compared to what I would want to pick them up for. It seems that a lot of players just use Regulus as a one-of, if at all. It can be a cool piece for decks that want to use the Super Heavy Samurai engine, since it's also searchable with Gigantic Champion Sargus, but it's not really something that you play in multiples, and even the decks that seem to use it are pretty far and few between. It's extremely likely that Regulus gets a reprint in the 2023 Megatins, hopefully as an ultra rare to match a bunch of the other cards from the Therion archetype, so if you can get some value out of the card now while it's still quite expensive, I think that this one you should absolutely be moving all of your excess copies of. And finally, there's one last thing I want to touch on, and that is the Exo Sister cards. So I'm showing packs here, but really this would apply to all of the others as well, so Sophia and Michaelis, I think, are the other two ultras from Grand Creators. Anyways, we've already had Adventurer token and Punk stuff reprinted, but the Megatins say that they will include cards from Grand Creators, so the only reasonable assumption here is that the Megatins are going to reprint the Exo Sister cards. And I have this feeling that because they're a waifu archetype, a lot of them are going to be reprinted as secret rares. I think a lot of them would look really nice, and the rest of the main deck monsters could finally match Martha. Right now, Exo Sisters aren't exactly a great deck. They can run some interesting tech cards like Dimension Shifter and Necro Valley, but overall, I feel like they just don't do enough and they're too one-dimensional to really be top tier. Yes, I know that they did win the Remote Duel YCS, but aside from that, I don't really see much from Exo Sisters, and I don't expect them to top on a regular basis. However, the deck is still popular, and so a lot of Exo Sisters are between that $5 to $10 range. Personally, I'm expecting all of the Exo Sister cards to tank big time once the Megatins reprint them. The cards themselves aren't that great, but they're worth more than just $1 or so because theoretically, they are still fairly difficult to get with just the one printing, but that won't be the case for long. Honestly, I've sold basically all of my Exo Sister cards because I'm not expecting that I'll be playing the deck anytime soon. Now, to be fair, after the cards are reprinted in the tins, depending on the rarity that the cards are printed in, they might be a very worthwhile pickup, so keep your eye out then, but for now these cards should definitely be moved while they still have a lot of their initial value. Alright guys, that is it for today's Market Watch. Hopefully you guys are able to take a look at those sets being reprinted and see if you have any of the pricier cards in there. Megatins can be a scary time because we don't know exactly what rarity the cards are going to be printed in, and sometimes of course there are exclusions cards that are not reprinted in the tins themselves, but most of the time the reprints are fairly easy to see coming, so we should try to offload specific things in order to retain as much value as we can. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Also make sure you guys leave a comment in the comment section down below, and if you haven't, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.